As always, we assume that the board reviewed the minutes of our past meeting. And that being said, would someone like to go ahead and make a motion to accept the minutes as written?
So moved.
Harlow moves. Will there be a second?
Second.
Okay, Harlow second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll
Okay.
abstain. I was not present in that meeting.
Got it. Okay. The chairman reserves the right to modify the agenda in order to most effectively process the agenda items. Items may be taken out of order. Items may be combined for consideration by the authority, and items may be pulled or removed from the agenda at any time. Members of the public who wish to address the airport authority may speak on agendized and non-agendized matters related to the airport. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person or topic. If your item requires extended discussion, please request the chairman to calendar the matter for a future airport authority meeting. The public may provide public comment in advance of a meeting by written submission to the following email address, manager@flycarsoncity.com. For inclusion or reference in the minutes of the meeting, your public comment must include your full name and address and be submitted via email by not later than 5 p.m. the day of the meeting, and the Carson City Airport Authority values your input. Members of the public who wish to provide live public comment may do so during the designated public comments periods indicated on the agenda in person. With that, let's start off with the airport engineer's report.
All right, so Brian Martinez-Molas with Wood Rogers. So updates for this month, the RSA drainage project, we're still waiting on the FAA to issue grant funding for that. So that one's still hanging out. We did get grant funding for the main apron project, which is awesome. So with that, that also kind of ties into the pavement preservation project. So we got the grant funding for the main apron, I think in mid-July. And then subsequent to that, Corey and Wood Rogers together were able to talk to the FAA ADO and got permission to combine those two projects into one bid, which will be beneficial just to keep one contractor on because it's really the same scope of work and they overlap. So we have approvals for that. We are working on the design of the main apron right now, and we will have that to the airport manager for review at the end of the month, and then we'll be able to go out to bid following that. So that's kind of where we're at for our projects at this moment.
Thanks, Brian. Anybody have any questions or comments? Nope. All right, thank you.
I can speak for Lochner. So Lochner, on the PAPI, the flight checks and commissioning is complete, and we're still pending approval for the instrument flight procedures. And that process, the application is more complicated, and Lochner has requested for some assistance from Kaufman and Associates, and we're working through that now. There may need to be an additional scope of work for Kaufman to step in and do a couple of things to help with the application. And we're actively working on that.
Okay, thanks, Corey.
The SRE building, the utilities are installed. Concrete foundation was planned for this week, but now we're looking at next week. And I actually have the most recent 3-week outlook chart added in the engineer's report, so y'all can see the details of what we expect over the next 3 weeks. And that is it.
All right, thanks, Corey. With that, we'll move on to the consent agenda. All of you have had a chance to take a look at the consent agenda item. So I'm asking for someone to go ahead and make a motion to approve. Don't even need it? Okay, we just move on. Any questions or comments on it? No? None. All right, we'll move on from the consent agenda on to the public hearings. We have 2 tonight. Number 1, for discussion and possible action, approval of the snow and ice control plan update. And I think at this point, we're going to ask Rick Lee to kind of present this to us.
I'll do a brief introduction. Each year the snow and ice control plan, we do a preseason and postseason meeting, and we have made updates every year following those meetings. This year is a fairly substantial change to the snow and ice control plan. These modifications were made by Rick Lee. Rick Lee is basically the leader of snow and ice control at the airport. Cody also had some input into this process before he left. And Rick is here to present those changes.
Thanks. Rick Lee, Carson City Airport Operations and Maintenance. So the main changes that were made to the plan was to better define what equipment is used on what areas of the airport and in what sequence. We had input from our internal discussions and discussion with the FBOs and airport users. And we just wanted to kind of clarify that and make the plan and the priority map that we have a little bit easier to follow and better define what we do and in what sequence. So that was really the main parts of what changes were made, and we made sure that the language in the plan matches what those plowing priority maps indicate. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Anybody for Rick or Corey? Guess not.
Okay.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Okay, if there's any comments from the public, I guess not. Nothing from the board, so let's go ahead and make a motion to approve this item for discussion, for action for the snow and ice removal. Would anybody like to make a motion to approve this?
So moved.
Carl Hutter moved. Second?
I'll second.
All right, John Rogers second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. The second item on today's agenda is approve the Echo Delta Hangar Association improvement permit request and extension of the construction timeline. I'll leave the more description of that to Corey and Steve.
Okay, so this item, whenever the Ortiz Brothers Aviation first was awarded this lease in 2021, the second building of their project had a little bit different design. It was actually a very odd shaped structure. That building is not the most efficient use of space, and would also be more expensive to build. So they're looking to build a simpler building that's going to be 4 hangars in one structure, very similar to the first building they built that was 6 hangars in one structure. They're all going to be box hangars of the same size. It better fits in the space that they have available. It also makes better use of ramp space. One thing that the airport has not always done the best job at is ensuring that hangars have enough space in front of the hangar for the airplane to park. This new design takes that into consideration to where it maximizes space to where a plane can be parked in front of the hangars without being in the object-free area of the taxiways. This is a much better design of what was originally presented for those reasons. There is a second portion of this application, and that is that they were permitted 2 years for construction from 2021. They are behind schedule, but they did complete that first building, and they have every intention of completing the second, but they just need additional time, and so they have requested 12 months. I think that 18 months is more appropriate, so what I have in the agenda item here is an approval for additional 18 months for them to complete this construction project. So that would be giving them through February of 2027 to complete the construction. The site plan is included in this agenda item with more specific details about the construction of the hangar. They also included an email which is attached that defines the colors and materials that will be used, which is compliant with the airport's requirements. And that is all that I have for the item, and I'm available for questions.
Are there any questions from the public? Any questions from the board? No questions from the board either, or the public. Okay. Then I'm going to call on a member to make a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the Echo Delta Hangar Association's improvement permit request for the revised hangar building design and grant an 18-month extension to the construction timeline until February of 2027.
All right. All right. That motion has been seconded. We'll close discussion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We're going to move on to the airport manager's report.
All right, we've had a very good couple of months as an airport. The first thing on my list here, which is a very big deal, is that we have received a letter of concurrence from the FAA for the CTE through defense access points. So that is the result of really 5 years of work. And so we should also be very proud of what we accomplished with that. CTE is moving forward with the necessary FAA approvals for construction, both on and off airport property related to that project. And it sounds like there's going to be very little required for them to build the access points on airport property. But they're actively working through that. And on off airport, it'll just be the standard for any construction in Carson City close to the airport. They're also moving forward with their plans to build a hangar on Taxiway Charlie. That project was kind of secondary to their through the fence access points, so they are a little bit behind schedule on that. I expect to see a proposal of their plan to complete construction, as well as a request for additional time before the end of the year for that hangar. And I think that we should definitely grant that, especially if they have a good proposal for their plan to complete that construction. SAM.gov. So we had some issues with SAM.gov, which is a required registration to receive grant funding and reimbursements for existing grants. The city had an issue where the city's SAM.gov expired. That's been resolved, and we have actually been awarded 2 of the 3 grants that we applied for. One of them being the South Ramp rehabilitation, and the other being the RSA drainage improvements. So, Brian, we have received that award. We are still waiting for a response on the 3rd grant application, which was for the forecasting update for the runway extension. And hopefully we'll get an answer on what the holdup is on that one. They did tell us that there would be multiple waves of grant awards, so it was not a part of this first wave. Or I guess second wave. I think we got our grants in the second wave, so hopefully we get that one too. Eagle Valley Hangar development lease has been fully executed, so they are moving forward with all the necessary requirements to get that project rolling. They're highly motivated, so I expect to see some good progress from them soon. They actually did a lot more than most hangar developers do prior to the lease actually being awarded. So they're really ahead of the game.
Quick question, Corey, is that the development on College Parkway?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And they've just executed a sublease to another airport user. It does not require board approval, but it's just information. There's another airport user out there who's off airport. They needed additional parking space, and they have parking space on that lease. So they're subleasing their parking space to this other airport user who's a manufacturer in the community. They just got a very big contract, and they hired a bunch of new employees. I approved that only as a temporary measure. It's not going to be approved for long term, but this is a way for them to offset some of their initial cost. So I think it's a really good opportunity for them and for the airport to make use of that space. Yep.
Talking vehicular parking?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's only on the land side of the parcel, not on the air side of the parcel.
That's what, okay. Good deal.
So it is in the actual parking area, in the area that we currently use for parking.
Right, okay.
It's the gravel lot that's like overflow parking. So it is a compatible use for that space. However, we would not approve that on a long-term basis. This is just a temporary arrangement. The AT&T amendment has been fully executed. That just makes it to the time is extended, and AT&T has actually put it in writing that they will be maintaining the beacon. That was a handshake deal prior to this. That is now fully executed, and we have the correct points of contact actually written into the lease to manage that. So it'll be a lot easier for us to deal with that without getting pushback from the maintenance operators. They'll be able to just move forward and get stuff done. I've made significant progress on a new employee manual. This is something that I've been working on since I started. The existing draft manual was very long and overly detailed. The new manual that I'm putting together is simplified and references regulation rather than defining everything in so much detail in the plan. So this manual would be very effective, I think more effective, because it actually references the relevant regulation, where the old one lacked that. It tried to rewrite the regulation. It's going to be much shorter, much more concise, while also being very effective. I don't expect to have a final version of this manual anytime soon, because it's something I'm working on in between other more important items. But this was referenced whenever I first got hired, so I wanted to make sure to let y'all know I am working on it, and it's actually a really good draft at this point. I just need to work out some of the more complicated portions of it. I've met with multiple developers who are interested in building hangars and aviation businesses at Carson City Airport. Even today, I spoke to another. There is enormous interest in bringing corporate aircraft to Carson City. The PAPI is a big part of that. I'm really looking forward to finishing that so I can tell these people that we have that nighttime approval. But they're looking at bringing large airplanes. And I think that may impact our forecasting update for the runway extension. But we'll see what happens with that forecasting update when that happens. Steve, okay. A reminder has been sent out to the ground lease holders to submit updated hangar certification forms. This is something that we started last year that we'll be doing annually to get updated information on hangar tenants on the airfield and helping the ground lease holders be compliant with the airport rules and regulations. Steve Takis is going to give a more comprehensive update on this in the legal counsel report. Airport open house planning. So the Airport Aviation Festival and open house will be September 20th, and we're looking forward to a really good event this year. We have been very successful with fundraising, and it's going to make it to where we can have an actual stage this year, which I'm really looking forward to. Last year and previous years, we've had to makeshift a stage, and it's not ideal. So we'll actually be able to have a good stage this year. I'm really looking forward to that. And please get the word out. I have flyers available, so if y'all would like to come by the airport office, I can give y'all some flyers that we can get out. And we'll be doing some increased marketing for the remainder of the month and the beginning of September. And that is all that I have for the manager's report.
All right, thank you, Corey. Let's move on to legal counsel report.
Yes, Steve Takis, Airport Legal Counsel. Segueing from the comment that the airport manager made, we have notified, the airport manager's office has notified hangar owners that they need to supply us with the information on the aircraft that are stored in their hangars and who's in their hangars. This is a requirement of the Carson City Municipal Code. It's been in there for a long time. Back in about 2017, we were audited by the FAA. They got on our case about not having better information about who's on the airport and also making sure that we're in compliance with the FAA's hangar storage rules, which are essentially the primary use of hangars on the airport has to be aircraft. And beyond that, as long as you have active aircraft and that's the primary use, the airplane's in front, you can get it in and out, then you can store other things in it. But that primary use of the aircraft for aircraft has to be there. So we adopted that in the Carson City Municipal Code, that we incorporated the FAA requirements. But among our requirements that we incorporated is a requirement for the hangar owners to notify us as to what aircraft they have in their hangar and who's occupying it if they've rented it to someone other than themselves. The rule that we adopted required them to also notify us within 60 days if it changed. But as you may expect, we aren't hearing from the aircraft hangar owners, particularly not from some of the hangar owner user associations that are holding the leases for some of the larger complexes in the interior of the triangle. And so, as Corey mentioned, we've sent out a letter giving them 60 days to tell us what's going on. And then if that doesn't occur, then we've already prepared a letter to go out to them from me saying, at the next meeting, we'll be putting your hangars up on the airport's agenda for termination of your lease, which those steps are, we would ask you to give them the mandatory or the allowed time period to correct their error that's in their lease, or the lease is terminated. And we hope it doesn't come to that, but a few of the hangar associations have been essentially blowing us off on this. They just ignore us. And so we're thinking it may come to that for some of these associations. We're really hopeful that people will be cooperative and provide the information. If we're not able to get the information, not only will we be coming back to you with proposed penalties or termination of leases, but also with mandatory hangar inspections. And that's something that we're not keen on doing, and I know hangar owners are not keen on having us look through their hangars, but I don't know any other way that we can do this and be in compliance with the FAA requirements. And we're not about to jeopardize our relationship with the FAA or the funding that we get or all the other things that we do with the FAA because, somebody just doesn't want to tell us what they have in their hangar. And so that's where we are on it. We're hopeful that it will all work cooperatively, but we've got our big stick ready in case it doesn't. Chairman? I
All
think
right,
you had
thank
some
you,
questions.
Mr. Takis. Any questions or comments?
You have a question down there.
Go ahead.
I'm speaking not as a member of the authority, but as a hangar owner of multiple hangars on the airfield. You're going to be hearing complaints from tenants of ours because we're one of the few who actually aggressively stick to the rules. And we have found in the past year or two hangars that we have the ground lease on, or we actually own the hangar, that are not occupied by aircraft. We just found another within the past few weeks. And we tell the tenant, either get in with your aircraft or hand over the keys. And this creates a lot of consternation. There's no doubt in my mind you will be hearing more from some of our tenants who don't have aircraft, because we just found one the other day. Yeah. So.
Yeah, can I respond to that just a little bit? Yeah, we're aware of that, and we did have that happen when the FAA did their land use audit. And there is some flexibility. There's a little bit of flexibility in the rules. It may well be that they have a hangar here and a hangar in Los Angeles, and they have the same airplane shares that same hangar. If they can show us something like that, that would comply with it. If they're doing a kit build of an airplane, and so it's not built yet, it's in its final assembly stage or something like that, that qualifies under the FAA rules and qualifies under our rules. If somebody has just sold their aircraft and they're in the market for a new one, if they can give us some evidence of that, that would satisfy it. We did have some people during that land use audit that said, oh, yeah, I sold my aircraft and I'm looking for a new one. And we find out they sold their aircraft 10 years ago, 10 years earlier, and there's no activity on a new one, and so that's not credible. So it has to be credible information. But there is some flexibility. We're not trying to be, we're not trying to be inflexible, but I mean, this is an airport. We want to make sure it's used for aircraft and it's not used because somebody thinks it's a great place to store, their junk. Yeah.
One add-on to that, Steve, and again, I'm just giving you a little historical perspective. The last tenant we evicted didn't even own an aircraft, was using the hangar for storage, and they screamed bloody murder when we evicted them. And chances are the authority never even heard about that one. The most recent one that we found, and I was the one who drove by it, and my jaw dropped. We got a guy on the airport conducting automotive repair services out of his hangar. Okay, he couldn't fit a balsa wood aircraft in this hangar. I saw one. I was like, what the hell? And I just noted which hangar it was, and we've sent them notice that time for you to find an auto repair shop off the airport. So we know those rules, but there's some interesting stuff that goes on out there.
Yeah, and thank you, Michael, for doing that. The setup at this airport with individual associations is designed to function exactly in that way.
And it's not to the benefit of the association, the hangar owner, or the airport to have anything but an aircraft in there.
Yep.
It's disadvantageous when these hangars get used for purposes other than aircraft storage.
Any other comments? No? Well, then we can move on to the treasurer's report.
Actually, before you jump on, I had one other item on the
Go right
Airport
ahead,
Council
Steve.
report unrelated to this. But at the June meeting, I had alerted you that there had been a change to our Chapter 844 of the NRS, which governs the airport authority. But it was strange. It really had to do with if we were to issue bonds, and if we issue bonds, there has to be an election to issue those. And if we had election workers, then we now have the capability of election workers working as volunteers instead of working as paid people. That was a change that was made to the legislature this last session that just kind of populated through every agency and commission and authority that has the ability to do something that involves an election. And so that was really the only thing that affected NRS 844, which is our chapter. But then I looked through it, the legislative changes, to see if there was anything else that affected aviation. And generally speaking, from the standpoint of the airport authority, I couldn't see anything that impacts us. But I just wanted to report on that because I told you in June I would be looking back into that just to make sure there wasn't a landmine out there that we needed to know about or something else. But that was the only other thing I wanted to report on.
Okay, thank you. Treasurer's report.
You have the numbers in front of you. There is nothing in there that causes me any alarm. I also should report that the process of auditing the results from last year has started and is going seemingly smoothly so far, as from my perspective. I also want to note that since I will be out of the country for the September meeting, this is my last meeting of the Airport Authority. And I want to thank each and every one of you for being a part of a high-functioning team that I find great pleasure in being a part of a high-functioning team. So thank you. Thank you very much. I also have to mention how great it's been working with Corey. He is a phenomenal manager and a good businessman and a very easy man to work with. It has been my distinct pleasure working with Corey.
Thanks, John. On behalf of the board, we all feel the same way about you, so it's been great. Any other comments from the board members?
Tim?
Yes. Yes.
I was under the assumption this was also my last meeting. Perhaps there's some confusion on my part. I was told maybe it's not, but we don't know if there's going to even be an agenda for the September meeting, or if I'll be here and John will not be here. So I was prepared to share some comments with everybody this evening considering that this may very well be my last meeting on the airport authority. And if it's not, I share the comments tonight versus next month.
Go
But
for it.
I want to thank everyone on this airport authority and our consultants, members of the public, members of airport staff who we've worked well with over many years. John and I have been on the authority for 8 years. That is a very long time. When I look back at where we were when we started as a governing body versus where we are today, it is night and day. I remember asking Carl to come back on the board one day. We were at an EAA Young Eagles event, and Carl was flipping pancakes. I was like, Carl, what do you think? And he was kind of on the fence, but he did it. Yeah, exactly. And the nature of the airport has changed so dramatically in such a good way. And I could list a lot of different things. I'm sure I'll miss quite a few. We had a significant change in management twice over this 8-year period. And the second time was definitely for the better. Before that, we hadn't seen any hangar construction in God knows how long. Now we have hangars coming out of the ground. Aircraft ops and based aircraft numbers are up. Fuel sales are up at the airport, which means more revenue to the airport. More aircraft means more property tax revenue to the airport. We have more lease revenue. We have policies and procedures in place that are easy to understand and follow for our staff and for the public. We have new snow removal equipment. The nighttime approach is pretty much there. The equipment is in and functioning. A lot of the problem children of the past on the airport have found their way to be better citizens or have left the airport environment. The finances of the airport, which is the heart of this operation, have never been better, thanks to all the work of this governing body, John and Corey, and everything we've done to increase our revenue stream as an airport. Our FAA grant funding is up considerably. The FAA pays serious attention to this airport now, where in decades past we actually even had to have congressional input to get us funding for things. And here we are, state capital, and we had to go to our congressional reps to get them to push for funding. And it was all because of the way things were being presented by the governing board of the airport authority. And it's just been such a dramatic change. One of the comments that I had made was in closing, and it's sad for me in one way to be stepping off the airport authority, because in my humble opinion, we have never, and I wish Paul was still here with us today on the authority, but we've never had such a great composition of members of the authority who bring in just a tremendous knowledge base, expertise, and skill set that lends favorably to what we're trying to do here. And every single member of this airport authority needs to be commended for what you do, because you're not getting paid. You're giving up a lot of your time doing this, and you care. If you didn't care, you wouldn't be here. None of us are here for the money, because there is no money. None of us are here for the glory, because we've had our glory. We've had our lives somewhere else, and our skill set is being used here from prior experience to assist the airport in working functionally with good business prudence and judgment to get the place where it needs to be. And I just want to thank each and every one of you for the, honor of working with you. I'm happy and relieved to be moving on. It's been 8 years of my life with a lot of different changes in my life over the course of those 8 years. But I've made these monthly meetings, and for, like 6 of the 8 years, I think, I was, chair of the airport authority. I was happy to give the gavel over to Tim, who's done a great job. And I'll be happy when somebody sits in this chair and replaces me and I can go fly off into the sunset. So thank you all very much for working with you. And it's been a pleasure and honor, and we are in a way better place than we were 8 years ago.
Thank you, Michael. And on behalf of the board, we'd all like to thank you for your leadership and your skill sets and your knowledge deep into the weeds that you've brought to this board over the years. And I can't agree more that the composition has become very productive and very efficient. And not only the board, but Steve Takus being with us for all these years and actually knowing what the heck's going on is really a pleasure. And Corey being dedicated, and just his staff. It's just been really a pleasure, and we'll miss you. We'll miss both of you. So thank you. Any comments from the public or from the board?
Carl, is this, are you finishing your term?
Not that I know of.
Oh, you're not? Okay. I couldn't remember.
Harlow's got a plan here. I'll get rid of them all.
Finish my 12th year on the board
Oh,
in the last 25 years.
But it's only the end of your first 4 in this latest wave. Yeah, we've still got some time. My one question, I guess, to the gentlemen who are leaving us is you have, of course, found competent replacements, right? Because in my business, you don't get to leave until you've.
yeah, well, I have one in mind, but I don't. I've spoken to that individual. Corey knows who it is, and he would be a great person to sit in this chair. But I don't know who else is out there. And when I'm gone. And unlike Harlow, I'm not coming back for another term. That's it for me. My days of volunteering are coming to an end.
In a sign of how far we've come, I have had multiple, 3 different people ask me, "Hey, can I get on the airport board?" And around the community, and I'm pretty confident that wasn't the case 8 years ago.
I can tell you this, because I should have led off with this, and now I'll keep my mouth shut so we can end the meeting. But I was asked to sit on the airport authority by multiple airport users. And that's how I ended up here. I really didn't want to do it. And I was not the only candidate because of the fact that you had to have, a candidate from an FBO. You got to have a candidate from manufacturer. You got to have, a candidate from the Board of Supervisors sitting up here, the way the composition of the airport authority is. But I was approached by multiple airport users who urged me to sit on the airport authority, and there were others who, had wanted to, there were others that wanted to take this position, and I guess I rose to the top with the Board of Soups, and that was that. So.
Okay. Any other comments? Any other questions? If not, we don't really have any known agenda items for next month yet, do we, Corey? Nothing is solid. So with that, I'm going to call this meeting adjourned.